Previously on Tales from Tech Titans.
Strategy is not what you say, strategy is what you end up doing. I think all the skills that you get are valuable and every skill adds on top of itself. If I wasn't successful, he would say to me, Anna, you have to learn how to listen. I was like, what? I did listen.
So pretty proud of the team effort.
It was just so proud. And it was just such a nice place to be. It was a wonderful leadership team, a wonderful executive team. It was just wonderful.
Who helped you make the kind of transition from the world of consulting and into that role?
And it senses because it's declining and there's redundancies at least once, if not twice a year. You always have this mentality that you're there for a good time, not a long time.
You're also presumably in an environment where tech is the product too.
Absolutely.
I say crypto, not crypto, you talk about cyber.
Yeah.
So like you have to be secure, you just don't last right in that kind of world.
Absolutely. And our security posture there was very, very high.
I feel that as Gen AI has become the talked about thing in technology, cryptocurrency just seems to have disappeared below the radar. What do you think is the future for crypto?
I think there's a lot of lobbying to stop crypto kind of coming through. And there's one of the challenges with crypto is you can actually create a coin now in a couple of hours. And so anyone can kind of have their own coin.
Who helped you make the kind of transition from the world of consulting and into that role?
I don't know if anyone really helped. Well, John Allen was the CEO at the time.
Yeah.
And he did help me with an executive coach, which was really fantastic, which was really good. But I didn't find it that difficult actually, because I'd come from that world. I'd come from running businesses and being an operational manager. So it wasn't a world that I was new to.
How did you know when your kind of time was done there?
Well, the business got taken over.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And
so kind of out of your hands a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the MO for Thrive is to exit all the executives. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So and I knew that as I took the role, though. I knew that was quite a likely outcome.
Yeah.
So, and it senses because it's declining and there's redundancies at least once, if not twice a year, you always have this mentality that you're there for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And it's probably a good opportunity then on reflection to transition from a decade somewhere into that kind of role.
Yeah.
Not probably going in thinking I'm going to be here in 10 years.
No.
This is about to get in, kind of evolve, learn some new skills, build and kind of move on. And from there, I read that you did a short-term contract around transformation and then you joined BTC Markets as COO again. I was... Again, not overly familiar with BTC, but they're in the world of cryptocurrency, I believe. I read somewhere the biggest or oldest...
Australia's oldest cryptocurrency exchange.
Which I will confess, I laughed when I read that because I thought...
2008.
You've been around for 10 years. It's a great claim, and I love you can expect to see 1885 above the door or something, not 2008.
It's a long time in crypto.
It is a long time. It's a lifetime in crypto.
Yeah.
So what... Because that's a relatively small business, I understand.
Yeah.
From the research that I did, and so what were you doing in that role? What did that involve?
So originally it was to have, and I really wanted revenue. So I really wanted to have an opportunity to manage revenue, and so it was going to be revenue, corporate services, and operations. And then I started, and I met with the head of technology on the second day, and I actually said, look, I actually don't know who you're reporting to, and he's like, I'm going to reporting to you, Anna. And I was like, okay, cool. Because I'd had a lot of experience running tech projects.
Yeah.
And that was a big focus for the technology team. And so I ended up having the whole business report into me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that was hugely challenging because crypto is you really do have to learn. And then I had cybersecurity that I'd never had before. I'd never had a HR before. Finance I'd kind of done enough of before. It wasn't a big deal. There's a couple of new things there for me.
Yeah.
Infrastructure, I'd never had infrastructure before. So it was and I kind of remember thinking after 6 weeks, I'm like, wow, why do I feel like this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got learning fatigue.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it was a lot, yeah.
You also presumably in an environment where tech is the product too.
Absolutely.
I say crypto, not crypto. You talk about cyber.
Yeah.
So, like you have to be secure, or you just don't last right in that kind of world.
Absolutely. And our security posture there was very, very high.
Yeah.
And the processes that we had in our operations team around customer service and fraud management were really leading, and we had to. Yeah.
So what did you learn about cryptocurrency through that experience?
I learned a lot about cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
I learned about custody. I learned about different operating chains. I learned about the power of the banking lobby and slowing it down. I learned about consensus mechanisms. I learned a lot about cryptocurrency. Yeah.
I feel that as Gen AI has become the talked about thing in technology, cryptocurrency just seems to have disappeared below the radar. What do you think is the future for crypto?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of lobbying to stop crypto kind of coming through. And there's one of the challenges with crypto is you can actually create a coin now in a couple of hours. And so anyone can kind of have their own coin. But the actual underlying technology around the different blockchains themselves, I think has got a lot of value. Yeah. And I haven't really worked through it, but I think there is a lot of synergy around with AI and blockchain as well. But I do think there's a future where, for example, all contracts are kind of written using a blockchain technology.
Yeah.
There is the digitization of real world assets. So I think there is a lot of utility for it. And I mean, even now, in Australia, we're probably one of the leading in the world around digital money.
Yeah.
And so I think that we will end up going more to something like a distributed ledger.
Yeah, interesting.
I
guess it makes sense in Australia because it's such a migrant country. People have come from all parts of the world. They're not bound or historic legacy to the sterling or the dollar or whatever. It's still a relatively new, still emerging country, right?
Yeah, and look, if you've got to move money around the world, moving money,
and that's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so we could do end-to-end a transaction from anywhere in the world on the XRP chain in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And so you just can't do that and the banking system is catching up because of the challenges and the threats. But there is a lot of international movement of money through crypto rails.
Yeah, interesting. Look, I'll confess I don't know a lot about crypto. Yeah, I'm probably more crypto curious is how I describe myself.
Yeah. There's a great podcast called that, Crypto Curious.
There is one. So there you go. Yeah. Damn it. I love alliteration. I feel like I just invented a new podcast, but it's taken. But I think what kind of I felt at the time, and there was all this NFTs and all this kind of stuff, I felt like the average person on the street couldn't assimilate, well, what does this mean? How is it better than the card in my pocket or the card on my phone or the cash in my bank or whatever? And when you don't kind of capture the public imagination, you're then kind of looking to business to say, hey, change your processes, change what you're doing and introduce something new because it's going to be better, faster, quicker, and it's going to solve and save you money or make you more money.
Yeah.
And I don't think those two things were probably apparent enough for either to be able to make a change. We talked about change management earlier, right?
Yeah.
It's people are resistant to change.
There's definitely not enough utility in the technology to move to using crypto from a day-to-day perspective. And so and the crypto market is made up of there's a whole heap of venture capital. Like you fund your business, you fund your tech company by creating a crypto coin and then marketing that coin. So there's a heap of just funding mechanisms there. But definitely the utility is not there. Visa and MasterCard are investing a huge amount of money in this space. Solana, the chain, in terms of the number of transactions they can process, I mean, this is a few years ago now, but they were significantly faster than Visa.
Yeah.
So in terms of B2B and in terms of commercial finance, there's definitely utility there in terms of moving money, transaction processing.
Yeah, interesting.
And having records that are immutable, so you can't change them. But in terms of our banking system and the work that's happened in our banking system around enabling digital currency means that there's not a lot of utility for us to shift. Now, there's arguments for third world countries that don't have that regulated banking systems. And certainly there's arguments if you've got an unstable currency as well. But for us in Australia, it's very, very hard to see the value from a retail perspective. Yeah.
And I think it feels, again, at the moment right now, there's enough battle going on around cash and the pressures that organisations like Armaguard find themselves under as well, which it's pretty complex. Very complex issue to fix. Yeah. You so it sounds like, going back to the role with BTC, an incredibly broad, diverse role that really pushed you, challenged you, developed you in a number of ways.
Yeah, it was a great role. Yeah.
Did anything in that role kind of give you a real passion towards like what you want to do next? Did it kind of create this career bucket list? Yeah,
I think so. I think I loved being. So I really love being with technology teams, and I loved being in a technology organisation. I don't think there's anywhere else in my experience where you are with people who are just committed themselves to learning. And in a blockchain company where the engineering team are always working to understand new technologies, everyone's reading, everyone's researching, everyone's figuring out how to do new things. And we're figuring out how to launch products. And so that you had this mentality of learning and exploring all the time. And I think that is in technology teams, like even if you think about an enterprise IT team, Windows is constantly changing. You're constantly figuring out how to use new technologies. And so it is just inbuilt into technology teams that you are continuously learning. Yeah. And so I really love that. I love that about technology companies and technology teams.
Yeah, I think you're right. I actually met with the CEO from an AI company this morning. Yeah. And what I found really overwhelming was he was the amount of learning he shared with me. I've been reading this and I've seen this and ChatGPT is saying this, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And McKinsey are reporting, and he just was clearly immersed in the world of learning about what's happening in that market to probably stay current, but also to make sure he's at the front of what's happening in that market to be able to maximize the potential. And probably other industries aren't moving as quick or advancing. So therefore it's not as relevant.
I think it's how fast AI is moving right now is just incredible, and the amount of money that's going into it, and the amount of change it'll bring to all of our lives is amazing. But yeah, it's hard, and it's the same with crypto. Those fields are so big and so broad that you kind of have to kind of pick your spot. Because you can't possibly understand every cryptocurrency coin. You can't understand every application of AI. Yeah. So you do, I think, in all cases have to go, okay, well, where do I need to learn about? Where am I going to start? What has utility for me now? Yeah. And start there. And accept that you're not ever going to have all the answers.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's getting comfortable with that. Yeah. I think generally in the world, the amount of data that we are exposed to and information that we now and consume probably on a daily basis. Yeah. I don't know the exact figures on this at all, but I'd imagine it's 100 times what it was 20 years ago or whatever. Yeah, just in terms of what we're exposed to. Yeah. But it's interesting, very, very topical, and again, the detail's not there yet, but it was interesting seeing some of the conversation yesterday about introducing age limits for social media.
Yes.
But also what I found interesting was quickly the negative reaction to it, saying about cutting children off is going to reduce their growth opportunities, and it's going to make them less competitive in the world. And all these, I was thinking, whoa, this is bonkers. How is there such a negative reaction to this so quickly?
Yeah, I got two kids. My kids are 9 and 11, and my son, and they have access to Kids Messenger, which is Facebook's or Meta's creation, which limits. So we have to, as parents, we approve whoever they're friends with. We have full transparency over what they do. And honestly, my son is on it a lot. So his best friend, they walk home together, and then his best friend keeps going the extra block, and then he gets on the phone and he calls my son. Yeah. And through COVID especially, my daughter was at the age, she was 7, and she wasn't very good on social media, and it was just an incredibly lonely time for her because her friends weren't able to communicate. They hadn't adopted those practices. Yep. So I kind of see, as a parent, especially a parent of a daughter, we are worried about the Snapchat years coming. we are worried about, and people tell me stories about how their kids from, say, 6 o'clock in the evening till 9 a.m. in the morning, there's all these conversations that happen. And if you're not on Snapchat, you turn up at school and you've got no idea what's happened. So I totally, and there's obviously so much dangerous and destructive behaviour that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can attest to it. Actually, we took our teenage son. He's now late teens, but we took him off Snapchat for a while because it was just a whole bunch of stuff that was growing out of control.
Yeah.
And in the end, he said, I pretty much need it back because I'm on the outer.
Yeah.
I'm getting no social connection because I don't know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And it took us a bit to wrap our heads around that. Coming from a different generation, it seemed bizarre. But you're right. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yes, okay.
And that's, they're saying this year and later this year, but something needs to give somewhere, but I don't know what needs to give and how that gets managed.
Yeah, I think they probably need to define it a little bit more around what does safe look like, and then what does it not? Because I think blanket approaches are always difficult. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's kind of wrap up the last bit of your career before then we'll go to the questions on the box. But you spent a bit of time more recently at Aussie Broadband.
Yeah.
So what kind of drew you to that role, and what was going on there for you?
So Aussie, I mean, as I came out of BTC Markets, Aussie, the opportunity was and the ask was to come to Aussie and be the CIO, which just an amazing opportunity. So Aussie as a brand is just, I think everyone knows who it is, and they deliver such amazing service to their customers from both a kind of customer service perspective, but also the service in home around internet.
Yep.
And so it was just a terrific opportunity, and an opportunity to do a really large transformation program, a lot of different technologies, and so it was just a great opportunity to kind of lead the transformation and lead a number of technology teams. So, yeah, I think when these things happen, you got to grab them. You've got to grab them with both hands. Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's something that I see quite consistently in tech is the transformative nature.
Oh, yes.
It means things can be quite short and sharp sometimes because you're kind of you're getting something done. That's the nature of the beast.
Yep.
But it also creates those nice punctuation points.
Yep.
Because you can see the end of a journey and kind of say, okay, what am I going to keep going here or onto something else?
Yep.
What does that next job look like for you? What's your kind of dream job look like?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So for me at the moment, I just think that there's so much great work to do within technology and transformation over the coming 5 to 10 years. And for me, I mean, I love being in technology roles and in technology organisations, and so I kind of am looking at a few different opportunities from leading technology organisations through to CIO roles, but also back in consulting, because I think there is just so much work to do, and for me, I've loved being on both sides. I've loved leading the teams and really working with them, and you kind of have a much deeper connection. And a lot of my close friends have come out of those roles. But I loved my time as a consultant as well. Yeah. And in some cases, you can do work that is really hard to do as an internal person.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I think the big thing for us, Anton, is that we're moving back to Brisbane.
Oh, right. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So in January, we're moving back to Brisbane. So, so it'll be really interesting to see. But definitely I think tech and transformation are going to be key parts of my future.
Yeah, there you go. I also now know who to hit up when I need a couch to sleep on for the Olympics.
Totally.
In 8 years.
Well,
you'll probably be back by then.
No, we won't be back. We won't be back. But you might not get a couch, Anton. You might get like a little bit of floor. If you
get a big enough garden, I can pitch a tent.
That's right.
Right, we're going to do the lightning round. So I don't know if you've seen this.
I have. I watched one. Yeah, you told me. So I was like, okay, let me see what happens. So do I have to pick?
Pick 3.
I pick 3. Okay.
And then flip them. Okay. Read the question and give us your answer.
Okay. Lightning round. If it wasn't tech, where would you be working now? Gosh. I don't know, my mind went to a couple of different places. So one, I kind of went into, sales, because that was where I started. And then the other one was ops. So ops was my kind of really deep capability, and I do love ops. So I think that's where I'd be. Yeah.
Do you ever see yourself back on a farm, being the country girl?
No.
That's very different.
And because my husband's from a farm as well, and he also is very, very much no to that. I do have this dream of having like acreage. I think the best place in the world is just north of Byron Bay. So acreage. I've always dreamed about having a couple of horses, but my son's allergic to horses, so I've had to kind of like...
He'll move out soon.
Yeah, that's right. So that's like,
yeah.
10-year plan.
That's right. Yeah. What do we got next?
Go next? Okay. Yeah. If you were a brand, what would be your motto? Gosh, that's hard. Wow, that's hard. I think... We are, and one of the things I really talked about with my teams and the leader that I really wanted to be was a leader that helped. And as a technology leader, you are there to help the business. So I really wanted our brand and my brand to be as a leader who helps, and as a team who helps and helps deliver.
Yeah, great. So like the servant leadership kind of model?
Yeah, absolutely. When I moved from Deloitte to Census, I had this opportunity to really think about the leader that I wanted to be. And when you're in consulting, you work with a lot of leaders because you go from project to project and there's different partners. And so I went through and I thought about all the different leaders that I had worked with that I really loved working with. And the big difference, or one of the big differences, was when times got tough, they rolled up their sleeves. And they didn't usually bother with a lot of criticism because, what does it do? And they really focused on, making suggestions for making things better or how to help you, and sometimes doing your work for you because, you're at the end of your tether.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I really wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I've got another one. Last one. What do you often do when you feel stuck? Oh, that's a great question. So I talk to people. I'm a big externalizer, right? So I love talking to people. I often go back to my husband and we joke because I tell him how I feel and he never tells me how he feels. So I find writing really, really helpful. And so really, because my mind, and I think others as well, just starts going round in a loop, right? So round and round and round and round in circles. And so really sitting down and processing information and starting to look at, well, what are your options? There are always options. What are your options in this situation? And I really like, the cascade of choices, which is a strategy framework. One of the questions in there is how to win. And you've got to say then, well, what is winning? And I think if you go back to that and you go, okay, well, what does good look like? Yeah. I've got these choices, I've got these pathways, and then how do you get to the one that's best for you? And then for me, it's always asking for patience. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm particularly intrigued by the writing aspect, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's a really lost, as in physically writing even with a pen. It can be typing as well, but the tendency to quickly edit stuff as you write and so forth. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, recently, and he was talking about how he comes up with many, many new ideas, very creative person, and that can be quite overwhelming for his team. So he implemented a new thing where every time he had an idea, he'd have to write it out as a memo.
Yep.
And everything about the idea had to be thought through and contained in the memo. Yep. And good enough that he could give it to someone and they could understand the concept. Yep. And the act of doing that actually made him think through his ideas better. Yep. Probably scrap a number of ideas before they got to the team. Yep. But also gave something for someone to take away and quiz him and discuss and explore with him about. And I was listening to that and I just thought that's really interesting, that's really powerful. The act of writing everything that's up here getting it down on a piece of paper really makes you work through it?
I find it so valuable. And so, and especially sometimes in my work, I meet a lot of people. And when one is new in a role, you're meeting across a large organisation, you're meeting people after people after people. And so I find that to just process information, and if I don't write, then that information comes to me later, but it will be people's reactions and their body language and what they meant and the inconsistencies. And so it enables me to really kind of digest all the inputs that I am getting, and then really synthesize ideas, put problems together, understand relationships between different things. So I think that's really helpful. And it's amazing using ChatGPT now, because you can ask it, you can actually ask it. You can say, this person did this thing, what could that mean? And I say, oh, well, maybe this person's feeling this way, and, you should consider X, Y, Z. So I think that's quite interesting. Yeah.
I was talking to a company in Sydney that were developing, it was a piece of kind of software around giving feedback and helping people to learn how to give feedback. But they were looking to take it to the next level, where essentially it could watch, a Teams call, a Zoom call between two people. And at the end, it could do sentiment analysis, but also tell you, how did that person receive the feedback? How was it delivered? Did it land? Did it not land? And then the tone of the feedback, the balance between positive and negative, absolutely blew my mind. It's the kind of stuff you're talking about. And that's, I think, really exciting in terms of some of the application for...
I think this, yeah. So Microsoft has actually patented a therapy version of Gen AI, yeah. And the LLMs are very good at understanding emotions.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So you can actually have a conversation with a chatbot, essentially, in therapy, essentially.
I think that's, it's interesting to think about the human connection, but I do think there's going to be a lot of conversational feedback and coaching, and both emotional coaching, professional coaching, and so forth. And there already is. Yeah. There's already education programs where they're using chatbots as tutors and as coaches to improve ideas and to flesh out ideas. But yeah, it's really interesting, because there's now all the visual inputs you can use and the voice inputs you can use. Yeah. And sentiment analysis has been around for a while now. Yeah. So it is really quite powerful in those spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's actually funny, as you were saying about that, I got a flashback to my kids telling me that Snapchat now had like a little buddy.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think what they called it, but like a little bot buddy type thing, and you could have a conversation with the bot. But my kids hated it. They were just like, "That's not what Snapchat's for."
Yeah,
I want to talk to real people. I'm not even sure you know these people, but real friends. That's right, not a robot, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and I think one of the industries that is actually quite advanced and investing a lot is aged care. And it's really interesting how some of the applications are using it. So they're using it to support the workers in aged care and provide them with information and let them provide outputs. But there's also support for the residents in aged care facilities and the patients, because you can play back information, you can play back in a verbal way, you can use holograms and visual people avatars. And so all of that just makes it a little bit easier to digest information, to receive information, to give back information.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Just playing with that in my mind as you were talking, because they talk about kind of loneliness being a killer, particularly of old people, as you kind of lose connection. But even like your Apple Vision Pro, right, goggle type things. The idea of being actually feel like you're in a room with someone having a conversation. Yeah, that kind of technology could potentially break down some of those barriers around those things.
Absolutely, and I do know someone at the moment who's working on an app to try and help after the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, wow.
And to try and give connection back to that loved one, because that experience of grief of a really close member of your family is very traumatic. Yeah. And so to kind of help support that, and so I think there will be lots of applications. Yeah.
It's so hard to keep up with it.
Oh, impossible.
It used to be a time when Microsoft released a version every 2 years. Yeah. Now there's a new app every 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah, and they're just jumping, right? I think this is the thing. You've got to find your space, what's relevant for you and your industry, And definitely, I think building everyone's capability is important, getting comfortable with some of how the technology works and what it can do.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's got to focus, because if you try and keep across it all, it's very, very hard.
Well, you can't. That's right. You just got to make sure you're probably existing in the places where the conversation's happening that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And follow it.
Yeah.
For as long as you can.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few sort of broader career questions for you. Have you got any career regrets?
I don't think so. Not when you, like, at the time, I think you kind of think, why did I do that? But not really, because again, I think it really all adds up, and the skills for me that I created in sales really have helped throughout my whole career. So no, I don't think so.
We the tendency, right, is to regret the things we didn't do.
Yeah.
And you've been overseas.
Yeah.
You've relocated. You've been in consulting. You've been in industry.
Yeah.
You've been in tech. You've been outside of tech.
Yeah.
You've done quite a lot.
Yeah.
So that would probably stack up.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, where I am in my career, I love the work that I get to do.
Yeah.
It's incredibly fulfilling work. It's working with people. It's solving problems. It's with technology. So, I'm stoked at where I've ended up and what I get to do day to day.
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're shaped by the feedback we receive.
Sure.
And you did give some you earlier shared some feedback you've received about listening, but I'm interested, what would you consider to be the most significant feedback you've received in your career?
I think I had a great manager. His name's David Cecil, and he was a great coach and mentor for me at Deloitte. And he would say to me, when people talk to you, Anna, you have to imagine that you are panning for gold. And especially if the person that's talking to you isn't a great communicator or doesn't have those skills, then at first you just may see rocks. But in every conversation there is gold, and it's your job to find the gold.
I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also a quite metaphor for people in general, right? In terms of the potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I believe everyone has potential in some degree, hidden or in plain sight. But that's the job of a leader, is to try and unearth that potential.
Absolutely. I think everyone has things that they're great at, and everyone should be able to find their fit where they're happy and they're thriving.
Yeah, great. What would be your one singular piece of sage advice that you would give to the next generation?
I think, and so I think for young women, I think get into tech.
Mm-hmm.
I think the opportunities there, the financial rewards are so, like, the how women get paid in tech, or how tech roles get paid is great. And so what that can give anyone, I think, man or woman, I think even if you think that it's not for you, then give it a go. Because there's lots of transferable skills. There's lots of design side now with UX and product design. But I think just give it a go.
Yeah.
Would be my thing. And then I think for tech leaders or aspiring tech leaders, I think really start investigating what are the skills on the other side. So what are those influencing skills? What are those management skills? What are those communication skills? And really start leading into those, because that they are the things that take, I think, a technology leader to the next level.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I like to think that I'm pretty well read and well listened, and then I met you, and you've already, I think, given me 3 or 4 things I've never heard or never read, which I'm off to Dimmicks now. But what would be your recommended reads or listens?
So my favourite, I guess, business book is From Good to Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a bit of a classic.
Yeah.
So I just love it. And I think the concept of flywheel is just a winner. And whether or not you're doing transformation or product launching or strategy, I think flywheel and discipline is what so much of successful business outcomes are about. So it's my favourite. The one that's really shaped a lot of my thinking at the moment is The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman.
Okay.
So he's the CEO of Microsoft AI and was the founder of DeepMind, and really talks about both particularly about AI and biotech and what's going to happen over the next kind of 10 years and the risks around that, as well as the opportunities and the immense change. So I think really that's a good reading for everyone.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Look, thanks for your time today.
It's been fun.
It has been a lot of fun and really insightful, and I've loved learning about your journey, and I can't wait to see what happens next in Brisbane.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks very much, Anton.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Tales from Tech Titans, and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. If you'd like to get more insights about tech careers, then check out the Ember, that's EMMBR LinkedIn page for the latest updates, articles, and engaging discussions.